Swoosh. Imolay was also eliminated. He only had a winning streak of over 20 matches, and almost every match was a tough one. In the end, he was unfortunate enough to encounter Baisu, who was ranked 21st. At the thought of Baisu, a cold glint flashed across Imolay's eyes. This Baisu was simply too cruel. Baisu was proficient in illusory martial arts. Some astral martial arts also contained illusions. This kind of martial artist was very terrifying. Not only did they have strong wills, they were very powerful. Moreover, once they deployed an illusion, if their opponent failed to withstand it, their opponent would practically be at their mercy. Imolay was pulled into the illusion by Baisu and tortured extensively. In the end, he was finished off by Baisu with a punch. The pain from the illusion was almost entrenched in the depths of his memory, and could not be cleared so soon. It was precisely because of this that he could still feel the pain even after being eliminated and leaving the virtual combat system. Actually, Baisu could have saved himself the trouble. He could have killed his opponent immediately after pulling them into the illusion. However, Baisu loved manipulating his opponents' minds and enjoyed the pain of opponents who were manipulated by him. It was also because of this that when some martial artists encountered Baisu, they simply admitted defeat and did not fight at all. After Imolay was eliminated, he naturally saw Lin Feng. He was also very surprised to see Lin Feng's ranking rising steadily. Although Lin Feng had displayed strength not inferior to a third-level metamorphic realm martial artist in the North Mountain base, he was not a third-level metamorphic realm martial artist after all. But now, Lin Feng had clearly become the greatest dark horse. Huh? It's Baisu. Imolay was still paying attention to Lin Feng, but he did not expect Lin Feng's next opponent to be Baisu. Remembering how horrifying Baisu was, Imolay gritted his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. Alas, it's fate. Brother Lin Feng, I hope you won't suffer too much. Imolay shook his head. Even though he also hated Baisu, he was more afraid of Baisu. The other party's illusion had already buried a crack in the depths of his heart. If he faced Baisu again, Imolay would probably not be able to unleash even half of his strength. As for Lin Feng defeating Baisu, Imolay had never thought of the possibility. Baisu's illusory martial arts were too terrifying. Up until now, he had no opponents. Without a doubt, this battle immediately became the key match of this round. Everyone's gazes were focused on this battle between titans. Lin Feng was the greatest dark horse, rising all the way to the 38th place. Baisu, on the other hand, was ranked 21st. He also practiced illusory martial arts, which could kill without leaving a trace. The encounter between the two parties could be considered the most important encounter in this round. Some were looking forward to it, but others were worried. Chu Chen frowned. She knew about Baisu and paid close attention to him. In reality, Baisu's illusory martial arts were simply unpredictable and impossible to guard against, such that one would not know when they had fallen into the illusion. Some martial artists even danced and made fools of themselves. Chu Chen was a little worried that Lin Feng would not be able to withstand Baisu's illusory martial arts. Li Hang had long lost his previous vigor. His big brother, whom he saw as a god, had long been eliminated. Meanwhile, Lin Feng had risen rapidly, climbing all the way to the 38th place as a dark horse. The last thing he wanted to see had really happened before his eyes. Seeing Chu Chen's worried expression, Li Hang's expression fell. He even felt that his previous confidence was ridiculous. It was simply a fool's dream to think that he could compare to Lin Feng. Chu Chen, I'm not feeling well. I'll leave first. With that, Li Hang stood up and left. Chu Chen looked contemplative, but in the end, she merely sighed slightly. How could she not know what Li Hang was thinking? However, that person had always been in her heart and always on her mind. Perhaps there was no room for anyone else. Li Hang's departure did not affect the popularity of the global martial arts competition. In fact, since Lin Feng was about to fight Baisu, the collision between these heavyweight martial artists caused the viewership ratings to soar rapidly. According to incomplete statistics, at least 80% of the world's people were watching the global martial arts competition. How impressive was this figure? No matter who it was, as long as they performed well in this martial arts competition, they would receive worldwide attention and enjoy endless benefits. Bai Su was one of them. His goal was not just to get into the top 50, but the top 10 or even the top 3. He wanted to show enough outstanding talent. He wanted to prove to everyone that after leaving the Bai family, he was still the most talented martial artist. Bai Su was a martial artist from the Freelance Cultivators Union. In reality, however, the Bai family was very prestigious. It was a huge martial family from the Consortium faction. The Bai family had a divine realm martial artist presiding over it, and there were many geniuses in the family. At first, they did not pay much attention to Bai Su. Later, Bai Su betrayed the Bai family and joined the Freelance Cultivators Union, earning the recognition of a divine realm martial artist. From then on, Bai Su and the Bai family were irreconcilable. Just before, he met someone from the Bai family, who was his biological elder brother. In the end, Bai Su used an illusion technique and practically tortured his own brother to death. This act had long made the Bai family hate him to the bone, but Bai Su felt exhilarated. He even felt that his heart was gradually becoming whole. He was about to master the illusory technique, and had a chance of undergoing a second life transition to enter the divine realm. As for Lin Feng, Bai Su did not care at all. He had never even taken the dark horse known as Lin Feng seriously. The two of them confronted each other in the virtual combat system. Lin Feng was not in a hurry to attack. Of course, he knew that Bai Su was an expert. In the virtual combat system, both parties could obtain each other's results. Without a doubt, in terms of battle results, Bai Su was more outstanding than Lin Feng. Your illusory martial arts are very strong, Lin Feng said indifferently. He did not attack immediately. It was rare to encounter such a powerful metamorphic realm martial artist. What you are using is the void bubble, right? Its power is not bad. I just wonder if you can still deploy the void bubble after you fall into an illusion, Bai Su also said calmly. He was dressed in white, and looked more like an ancient scholar or scion than a martial artist. However, his gaze was slightly sharp. You are so young. You have a family, right? Have you ever felt what it's like to be betrayed by your loved ones and have your family destroyed? Bai Su slowly took a step forward. There was a faint fluctuation of astral power on his body. This was the illusory martial art he used, a very profound and bizarre astral martial art. The enemy would see whatever he wanted them to see. From there, the enemy would fall into an illusion. This targeted the opponent's mental weakness entirely. His illusionary martial arts had already been tried and tested at the global martial arts competition. No one could resist it. This was also why he was extremely confident. Young genius martial artists like Lin Feng had many mental flaws, and family was often very important to them. Hence, Bai Su believed that family was Lin Feng's greatest mental weakness. That was why Bai Su had said those words just now. It was to render Lin Feng's heart apart and find his weakness. Bai Su was very confident in his illusion martial arts. Hence, a smile gradually appeared on his lips as he waited for Lin Feng to be immersed in the illusion. Lin Feng felt a strange power envelop his entire body. The mental power sphere in his mind spun, as if something had triggered it. Mental power filled Lin Feng's mind, invigorating his spirit. He didn't seem to feel anything. Lin Feng looked at Bai Su with slight surprise. Bai Su was still smiling there. Why did his expression look a little awkward? Bai Su was indeed a little embarrassed. Wasn't family Lin Feng's mental weakness? Why was family ineffective on Lin Feng? Hence, Bai Su took a deep breath and said, Lin Feng, have you ever liked someone? Liked someone? Chu Chun appeared in Lin Feng's mind, but that was all. Bai Su's face was flushed red from exertion. The astral power fluctuations even became stronger, but Lin Feng still did not feel anything. Was Bai Su deliberately going easy on him? Lin Feng even suspected that Bai Su was kidding around. How is that possible? It's impossible for your mind to be flawless. How can you not fall into the illusion? Bai Su wore a somewhat embarrassed expression. When mentioning words like family and someone he liked, Lin Feng's expression clearly changed. This meant that Lin Feng's mind was flawed. It was basically very easy for a flawed mind to fall into his illusion. Why hadn't Lin Feng fallen into an illusion? Bai Su found it unbelievable. He could not understand it at all. Oh, is this your illusion? Lin Feng shook his head. He had roughly understood that Bai Su's so-called illusion actually targeted the mind. However, if the mind was protected by mental power, what could a mere illusion do? In terms of the use of mental power, the current Lin Feng was even stronger than the 9 sages. After all, he had the cultivation method for mental power under the cosmic cultivation system. Seeing that Bai Su and Lin Feng did not fight, nor were there any fierce battles, for a moment, the people watching the battle outside, as well as those watching the live broadcast on television, were all somewhat confused. What are they doing? Why aren't they attacking? Doesn't Bai Su have illusory martial arts? Why isn't he using them? Could it be that both parties are wary of each other and are reserved as a result? Many martial artists could not tell Bai Su's situation, but some of the people in charge of commenting were senior martial artists. Although they might not be very strong, they must be very knowledgeable. Some commentators analyzed that Bai Su had already attacked and used illusory martial arts, but it seemed to be ineffective against Lin Feng. Illusory martial arts are indeed quite strong, but if they're countered, they're worthless. Hao Shi shook his head and said indifferently. Initially, he was a little worried about Lin Feng, but now, it seemed that Lin Feng's mental will was stronger than he had imagined. He could actually ignore Bai Su's illusion directly. How strong was such a mental will? Good. A mental will strong enough to ignore Bai Su's illusion. Young Lin Feng should have no problem entering the divine realm. Xia Laogue rubbed his hands together, his face filled with excitement. Many martial artists could not undergo life transitions because they did not have enough mental power. However, it was the opposite for Lin Feng. His mental power was very strong, far stronger than ordinary martial artists. However, it was not that easy for him to undergo a life transition. This was because he cultivated the pure form of cosmic cultivation system. If he wanted to condense the combat body, it would require very strong mental power. Otherwise, it would be impossible to use mental power to forcibly restructure the genes according to the combat body. At the very least, Lin Feng's mental power was far from reaching the level of a second life transition. Even if his opportunity came and he could undergo life transition immediately, he still would not be able to cultivate the combat body. However, with his current mental power, resisting Bai Su's illusory martial arts was a piece of cake. No, impossible. I don't believe it. How can you ignore my illusion when you clearly have mental flaws? Eye of illusion. Bai Su's expression became a little feral. He could not accept such a blow. He was extremely confident in his illusory martial arts and did not believe that Lin Feng could really ignore it. Hence, Bai Su did not hold back at all and unleashed all his astral power. At the same time, an eye emitting a hazy gray light gradually cracked open on his forehead. Being stared at by this eye, Lin Feng felt the mental power sphere in his mind rotate rapidly, releasing a large amount of mental power to protect his mind. Mental innate ability? Lin Feng was a little surprised. How could he not understand that the talent Bai Su had awakened was clearly a mental innate ability? This kind of innate ability was very rare. Once this kind of mental innate ability was awakened, cultivating illusory martial arts would yield twice the results with half the effort, and was very easy. No wonder he chose to practice illusory martial arts, and had such high attainments in illusions. If not for the fact that Lin Feng had condensed a mental power sphere, it would probably be very difficult for Lin Feng's mental will to resist Bai Su's illusion. Seeing Bai Su use the Eye of Illusion, even the 9 sages were a little interested. Sage Yune, this Bai Su is from your freelance cultivators union, right? He actually awakened an illusion-type innate ability. Not bad. Elder Kong also praised. Sage Yune nodded and said, "That's right. Bai Su is a member of our freelance cultivators union. Unfortunately, due to his past with the Bai family, he has some flaws in his temperament. If he cannot resolve these flaws, it will be difficult for him to even step into the divine realm. Illusory martial artists in the divine realm are indeed rare. However, your freelance cultivators union can discuss this matter with the consortium faction. Sage Batai is also here, so this is a suitable opportunity. Elder Kong was also willing to be this middleman. He was the pioneer of human martial artists, the first sage, and had high prestige and status. At the same time, he wanted to do everything he could to improve the overall strength of humanity. Some benefits were not of much concern to him. Even though Baisu was only a metamorphic realm martial artist, if he could grow into a divine realm martial artist, he would be a great weapon against those dire beasts in the future. The advantage of illusory martial artists over intelligent life forms was simply too huge. Sage Bataille also nodded and said, "Since Elder Kong has said so, later, I'll get someone to remind the Bai family to prioritize the greater picture. I hope this little fellow can resolve the flaws in his temperament." Haha, that's exactly what I want. I'll thank Sage Bataille on behalf of this little fellow first. Sage Yuani was also very happy. After all, Baisu was a genius of the Freelance Cultivators Union. If the Freelance Cultivators Union could produce a divine realm illusory martial artist in the future, it would be a great thing for the Freelance Cultivators Union as well. However, I think Lin Feng is even more impressive. Baisu has already used his mental innate ability, but he still can't make Lin Feng fall into an illusion. This little fellow's mental will is very strong. The invincible fist sage, on the other hand, thought more highly of Lin Feng. However, the other sages also nodded. Lin Feng was indeed better. Not everyone could remain steady as a rock in the illusions as terrifying as the ones Baisu deployed. How can it be completely useless? Baisu used the Eye of Illusion, but saw that Lin Feng's expression was unchanged. It was obvious that it was useless against Lin Feng. "Baisu, your illusions are useless against me. It's my turn next." Lin Feng looked at Baisu's increasingly pale face and shook his head. He actually felt a little disappointed. Initially, he wanted to see how miraculous Baisu's illusion was. However, from the looks of it, Baisu's illusion was useless against him. It was just too disappointing. Since Baisu's illusion had failed, Lin Feng would not stand on ceremony now. It was his turn next. Void Bubble. The magnificent void bubble instantly enveloped Baisu. Baisu was an illusory martial artist himself, so he was naturally not bewitched by the void bubble. However, being enveloped by the void bubble and sensing the terrifying power contained within, he knew that this time he had lost. Collapse! As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, the beautiful void bubble instantly collapsed. Baisu's figure was reduced to ashes. On the big screen, Baisu's name disappeared. Lin Feng's ranking also rose to 37th. This heavyweight battle ended with Lin Feng's victory and Baisu's elimination. Swoosh! Baisu opened his eyes and looked around at the martial artists, who were as confused as him. They were all eliminated martial artists, and Baisu was one of them now. I was actually eliminated. Baisu felt a little bitter. The moment Lin Feng's void bubble collapsed, he had felt pain. The simulative virtual combat system had also simulated pain. He could clearly feel his body disintegrate in an instant. The intense pain was bone deep. Even though it was only for a brief moment, it was unforgettable. Perhaps the martial artists he had pulled into the illusions had also experienced such pain, or even greater pain. Lin Feng. Baisu saw the figure on the screen. The one who eliminated him was Lin Feng, a martial artist he had thought was no threat at all. However, he had lost and lost so dreadfully and ironically. He could even imagine the unbridled laughter of the Bai family at this moment. They must be so smug. They must be so smug while mocking my failure with abandon. Baisu clenched his fists tightly. He could accept defeat. He could accept any blow. But he could not tolerate the way the Bai family mocked him. He could not tolerate losing face before the Bai family. And now, the Bai family must be watching this martial arts competition that was being broadcast live worldwide. It was equivalent to him being defeated before the Bai family, as if he had been humiliated by them. Baisu clenched his fists tightly, his heart twisting. The divine realm martial artists of the Freelance Cultivators Union and some metadivine martial artists who were paying attention to Baisu all shook their heads. They could all tell that Baisu actually had a huge flaw in his heart, and that flaw was the Bai family. If Baisu could not put it behind him and resolve his mental weakness, he would never be able to undergo a second life transition. Lin Feng had defeated Bai Su and become the true dark horse. Even the distinguished Greiman, who had been ranked first from the beginning, noticed Lin Feng. Every martial artist in the virtual combat system was not completely unaware of the situation outside. On the contrary, they could also see the martial artists ranked in the top 100. Although Greiman was ranked first, there weren't many people who paid attention to him. This was because of his age. He was a martial artist from the Holy Capital Academy. Back then, he was considered one of the three greats alongside Dongfang Sheng from the Myriad Academy and Lu Chun from the Polar Academy. They were the top geniuses of the three major martial academies. But in the present time, forget about comparing to Dongfang Sheng. Even compared to Lu Chun, Greiman was far inferior. 10 years ago, Lu Chun had finally undergone the second life transition and reached the divine realm. Dongfang Sheng had also undergone 3 life transitions not long ago and entered the metadivine realm. As for him, Greiman, he was still stuck at the metamorphic realm and unable to advance. Now, he still had to compete for the rankings in the martial arts competition with these metamorphic realm martial artists in their 20s. To the proud Greiman, this in itself was a humiliation. Although Greiman was stuck in the metamorphic realm, he was indeed very strong. He was consistently ranked first, and there was a huge gap between him and the second and third places. As Lin Feng steadily improved, he got closer and closer to the top 10. Even Greiman felt some threat from it. However, he had his pride. Even if he was inferior to Dongfang Sheng and Lu Chun, he would not lose to anyone among these young martial artists. Lin Feng did not know that Greiman had already noticed him. After he defeated Bai Su, his ranking rose by 1, ranking 37th. Although the next few martial artists were at the third level of metamorphic realm, who could match Lin Feng in a single exchange? Hence, almost every time Lin Feng defeated a martial artist, his ranking would increase by a little. The gap between the top 50 rankings was actually very small, and some were only 1 or 2 matches apart. From the beginning until now, Lin Feng had used the void bubble and ended battles swiftly. Actually, this could only be done through the virtual combat system because as long as he defeated his opponent, his astral power would recover instantly in the next round. If this were an actual battle, Lin Feng would not use the void bubble so recklessly. That would consume a lot of astral power. At that time, it would depend on the skillful use of astral power, durability, and some innate abilities. Overall, there was still a slight difference between the virtual combat system and actual combat, but it was not much. In a real fight to the death, Lin Feng would give it his all and use the void bubble. If one could not withstand it in the virtual combat system, how could they withstand it in reality? 53 matches, 54 matches, 55 matches. Lin Feng's ranking rose steadily. By the 60th match, he was already ranked 10th. The gap between the 10th place and the 50th place was just too small. Many martial artists' winning streaks were even tied. Often, 1 or 2 victories could increase the ranking by a lot. Similarly, the gap between the 10th place and 2nd place was relatively small. Only the 1st place already had a winning streak of 88 matches by now. The gap was relatively large. Greiman. Lin Feng naturally noticed Greiman, who was temporarily ranked first. Just like Lin Feng, Greiman had almost never encountered his match. Of course, this was also because Greiman had never encountered any heavyweight opponents. However, Lin Feng had defeated Bai Su, who actually had the strength to enter the top 20, or even the top 10. Right now, most of the people were paying attention to Lin Feng. They wanted to see how far Lin Feng, the greatest dark horse, could go in the end. Would he stop at the top 10? It had to be known that the current top 10 were all very strong. Basically, these 10 people were likely to be the final top 10. The audience naturally wanted to see these 10 people meet, but in reality, these 10 people knew very well that the chances of the 10 people meeting in the elimination rounds were minuscule. This could also be considered an unspoken rule of the virtual combat system. Otherwise, once an intense encounter occurred, someone would eventually be eliminated, giving those who were weaker a chance. That would be true unfairness. 63 rounds. Lin Feng is so strong. Is he already ranked 9th? Haha, 64 battles. No, 65 battles. That's too fast. He's already ranked 8th. Did you guys notice? From the beginning to the end, Lin Feng has only used the void bubble back and forth. He hasn't used any other methods, but no one can crack it. Many people were paying attention to Lin Feng. They watched Lin Feng advance at a very stable speed, and his ranking also rose steadily. One by one, they had become Lin Feng's supporters. 66 matches, 68 matches, 70 matches, 73 matches. Everyone was nervous. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng had already won 80 consecutive matches. In fact, the 80 matches had already allowed Lin Feng to climb to the second place. At this moment, the first place Greiman had already won 91 matches in a row. There was only a gap of 11 matches between them. Moreover, Lin Feng's speed of catching up was astonishing. He's catching up so quickly? I have to speed up. I can't lose to a junior. Greiman naturally discovered that Lin Feng's ranking was rising like a rocket. At this moment, there was no doubt that Lin Feng had already secured the position of the greatest dark horse. Compared to Greiman, Lin Feng was indeed a junior. Hence, it was all the more reason for Greiman to not want to lose to him. However, in Greiman's 92nd battle, he encountered a tricky character, Ralph, who was temporarily ranked 11th. Ralph had awakened flight as his innate ability. He had white wings like an angel in Western mythology. Ralph was also cursing his bad luck when he met Greiman. He was ranked 11th and had a good chance of making it into the top 10. He had originally been full of confidence, but he did not expect to meet Greiman. However, even if he met Greiman, Ralph would not give up so easily. If he wanted to attain his goal of getting into the top 10, he had to defeat Greiman. Whoosh! Ralph was fast, like a whirlwind. Even Greiman would need some time to get rid of Ralph at that speed. Damn it! Greiman's expression darkened. He knew how precious this period of time was to him. If he delayed for even a moment, Lin Feng might catch up even closer. Haha! There's a chance. Lin Feng has won another 3 consecutive matches. Currently, he has a winning streak of 83 matches. Does Lin Feng have a chance to surpass Greiman? I hope he can surpass Greiman. Although Greiman is quite strong, his potential has already been exhausted. Back then, he was on par with Dongfang Shang and Lu Chun. What about now? The other 2 of the 3 greats have both become Divine Realm and Metadivine Realm experts, yet Greiman is still struggling in the metamorphic realm. Some people were very interested in the battle between Lin Feng and Greiman. In a sense, this was also a direct competition between geniuses of 2 generations. Such a scene was not common. No matter what, Greiman was a top genius who was once on par with Dongfang Shang and Lu Chun. He could be considered a genius of the previous generation. As for Lin Feng, his identity was actually just a new student of the Myriad Academy. He was undoubtedly a current top genius of the 3 martial academies. He was even the undisputed top genius among all the metamorphic realm martial artists in the world. Such a direct competition between 2 generations of geniuses immediately ignited everyone's emotions. However, Lin Feng did not seem to be affected. He fought on as usual, and every battle lasted less than 5 seconds. 84 matches, 85 matches, 86 matches, 87 matches. Lin Feng was getting closer and closer to Greiman's winning streak, but Greiman was still fighting with Ralph. It was very difficult to defeat Ralph in a short period of time. Actually, Lin Feng had also encountered a tricky opponent. His opponent in the 88th round was a martial artist temporarily ranked 15th. He was very strong, and his direct combat ability was far stronger than Bai Su's. In the battle between Lin Feng and Bai Su, as Lin Feng happened to be able to counter Bai Su's illusion was useless against Lin Feng. Hence, no one had been able to test how strong Lin Feng's direct combat ability was. Encountering the martial artist ranked 15th now was a huge test for Lin Feng. But in the end, Lin Feng still deployed the void bubble, and still easily eliminated his opponent in less than 5 seconds. This battle made everyone realize clearly that how Lin Feng rose all the way to the second place and became the greatest dark horse was no fluke at all. He had relied entirely on his formidable strength. In the next 89th and 90th battles, Lin Feng met powerful opponents. One was ranked 20th, and the other was ranked 14th. They were not inferior to the opponents that Greiman had met. However, Lin Feng still steadily eliminated his opponents, as if dealing with them was no different from dealing with those second-level metamorphic realm martial artists. Almost there, almost there. There's already a winning streak of 90 matches. Greiman has yet to defeat Ralph, but Lin Feng has already caught up to 90 matches. He's only one match short of Greiman. Is Lin Feng really going to become the greatest dark horse? Greiman is ultimately a genius of the previous generation, and his potential has already been exhausted. He's far inferior to Dongfang Shang and Lu Chen. He might even be surpassed by Lin Feng, the genius of the new generation. Many people lamented about Greiman, and many people were excited that Lin Feng was about to surpass Greiman. Finally, Lin Feng's 91st opponent appeared. It was Tang Tao, ranked 12th. Tang Tao looked at Lin Feng. Although he was ranked 12th, he knew that it was impossible for him to enter the top 10. Lin Feng, I'm also a martial artist from the Myriad Academy. Speaking of which, I'm actually your senior. However, as your senior, I am far inferior to you. Senior, you're too kind. Lin Feng was not in a hurry to attack. After all, Tang Tao was his senior. Tang Tao smiled weakly and said, I've seen your void bubble. It's too powerful. Even if I unleash all my astral power and innate abilities, I definitely won't be able to resist it. In that case, I won't waste your time anymore. Haha. Remember to get first place for our Myriad Academy. I admit defeat. With that, Tang Tao disappeared. As Tang Tao admitted defeat, Lin Feng's winning streak finally reached 91 matches, tied with Greiman's. It's 91 matches. They're tied for first place. Tang Tao actually admitted defeat. However, he knows his own limitations. The outcome would be the same whether he admitted defeat or not. It's been 91 matches. Can Lin Feng really surpass Greiman and be ranked first? I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect that Lin Feng can be ranked first too. Many people found it unbelievable. Along the way, almost no one could withstand a single move from Lin Feng. He arrived at first place with irresistible force. Arg, die! Greiman went entirely berserk. He erupted completely. All the astral power in his body erupted like a small sun, emitting blazing light as he charged towards Ralph in an instant. Boom! The entire space shook. Then, Ralph disappeared. A winning streak of 92 matches. The number behind Greiman's name suddenly jumped to 92, just above Lin Feng's, and became first again. However, no one felt that Greiman still had an advantage. What was one match short? With Lin Feng's speed, he would probably be completely ahead of Greiman in 3 or 5 more matches. In the eyes of many, Lin Feng's ranking as first was already set in stone. There was almost no suspense left. However, Lin Feng, who was in the virtual combat system, was very confused. After Tang Tao admitted defeat, he did not encounter his next opponent for a long while. What was going on? The audience outside was also very confused. Why hadn't the next battle gone on yet? Some sharp-eyed people had already realized that, at some point in time, only 10 participating martial artists were left on all the screens in the entire square. It stopped. There don't seem to be any more martial artists. Could the elimination rounds have ended? The 10 martial artists in the virtual combat system were also a little baffled now. But perhaps some had already thought of the reason the elimination rounds have ended. The remaining 10 martial artists have won. The rankings are determined by the winning streak. Then, the names of 10 people appeared on the big screen, followed by the winning streak. Greiman, winning streak of 92, ranked first in the elimination rounds. Lin Feng, winning streak of 91, ranked second in the elimination rounds. Fu Lin, winning streak of 81, ranked third in the elimination rounds. Darden, winning streak of 78, ranked fourth in the elimination rounds. Lin Su, winning streak of 76, ranked fifth in the elimination rounds. Ouyang Jing, winning streak of 74, ranked sixth in the elimination rounds. Cialis, winning streak of 72, ranked seventh in the elimination rounds. Ander, winning streak of 70, ranked eighth in the elimination rounds. Lu Chengfeng. Winning streak of 69, ranked 9th in the elimination rounds. Wang Yiming, winning streak of 68, ranked 10th in the elimination rounds. When the names of the top 10 in the elimination round were listed, everyone's gaze and all the cameras were focused on this ranking. At this moment, the names of these 10 people instantly spread throughout the world. The identities, backgrounds, and all the other information of these 10 people would be investigated as soon as possible. This was what it meant to become famous overnight. There was no faster way to fame. Whether these martial artists were willing to become famous or not, they could not change the fact that they were already world-renowned martial artists now. Bai Su clenched his fists tightly. He originally had a chance of making it into the top 10. But his efforts were in vain when he met Lin Feng. Ralph was also very regretful. If he had met the 8th, 9th, and 10th martial artists instead of Greiman, he might have been able to defeat them. Then, he would have been able to enter the top 10. Unfortunately, there weren't that many what-ifs. Actually, the last 3 martial artists should be rejoicing. They were more or less lucky to be ranked in the top 10. In fact, some martial artists' strength was not inferior to theirs. As for who was stronger, they would only know after fighting. However, their luck was obviously better, and they did not encounter opponents that were too powerful. There was almost no secret in the information of the 10 martial artists. They were all investigated thoroughly. However, the ones who received the most attention were Lin Feng and Greiman. After all, Greiman was a top genius of the previous generation and had always been very powerful. Meanwhile, Lin Feng was a new generation genius, and the greatest dark horse of this martial arts competition. Naturally, he received the attention. In reality, this ranking could also reflect strength to a certain extent. For example, Lin Feng and Greiman were clearly a tier stronger than other martial artists. As for the 3rd to 10th place, although there was some difference, all the differences were not very great. As the elimination rounds ended, Lin Feng and the others also woke up from the virtual combat system. After the elimination rounds was the qualifying rounds. There was a break of 1 hour in between for the 10 martial artists to adjust first. However, during this period of time, the debate about who was stronger between Lin Feng and Greiman had reached its climax. Some people felt sorry for Lin Feng. They felt that if there were still martial artists remaining, Lin Feng would definitely be able to surpass Greiman's ranking in the end, and wouldn't be just 1 match away. However, there were also people who believed that Greiman's strength was not bad. If he had not met Ralph, he would not have been delayed for so long. Moreover, the focus of the 2 martial arts was different. Perhaps Lin Feng's void bubble was very advantageous in the virtual combat system, so he defeated his opponents very quickly. If he fought with Greiman and Lin Feng's void bubble failed, Lin Feng would be in danger. Of course, this was only the opinion of some people. There were also some who felt that Lin Feng's void bubble was very powerful. Up until now, no one had been able to test the limit of Lin Feng's void bubble. Lin Feng had never fought for more than 5 seconds against any opponent. This meant that Lin Feng's strength far exceeded that of many martial artists, and was even on a different level from other martial artists. Even Greiman was definitely not Lin Feng's match. Both parties had their own rationales for arguing. Neither could convince the other. Not only were some metamorphic realm martial artists arguing, even some divine realm experts were arguing. The divine realm experts naturally had higher standards. The focus of their arguments were also different. How she? Between Lin Feng and Greiman, who do you think is stronger? Xia Laogui also found it rather interesting and asked with a smile. How Shi's expression was solemn and somewhat uncertain. I know about Greiman. His talent is indeed very strong. Back then, he was considered one of the 3 greats alongside Dongfang Shang and Lu Chun. However, Dongfang Shang and Lu Chun have both reached the divine realm. Not long ago, Dongfang Shang even became a meta-divine realm expert. But why has Greiman been unable to enter the divine realm for so long? It's because he focuses too much on studying the power of martial arts. He cares too much about improving his combat strength, so much so that his mind is completely focused on studying martial arts and astral power. There are advantages and disadvantages to this. His studies in martial arts and astral power can almost make him invincible among his peers, and causes him to be intoxicated by this honor. Back then, in terms of combat power, Dongfang Sheng might not have been able to defeat Greiman. But now, once Lu Chun and Dongfang Sheng both entered the divine realm one after another, and the two parties were no longer on the same level no matter how strong Greiman is, how can he compare to the other two? Therefore, his martial path has already deviated. Even though he has already realized the problem over the years, it's a little too late. Although it has become very difficult for Greiman to enter the divine realm, his strength can be considered invincible among those of the same level. His years of studies in martial arts and astral power were definitely not in vain. It's very difficult for Lin Feng to defeat him. Hao Shi's analysis was very accurate. Even though Lin Feng was his protege, he was actually not optimistic about Lin Feng's results. However, Xia Laogui said slyly, "Hao Shi, why don't we make a bet? I think Lin Feng will definitely be able to defeat Greiman. If you lose, agree to one condition of mine. If I lose, I'll also agree to one condition of yours. How about that?" Seeing how confident Xia Laogui was, Hao Shi could not help but ask, "Xia Laogui, do you think so highly of Lin Feng?" "That's right, I think so highly of Lin Feng. How about it? Dare you make a bet?" "No, Xia Laogui. No matter who has the last laugh between Lin Feng and Greiman, I won't bet with you. Don't even think about my bottle of treasure." "Ugh, stingy." Xia Laogui shook his head helplessly. Hao Shi did not take the bait, so there was nothing he could do. "Xia Laogui, seriously, have you figured out something?" Hao Shi knew that Xia Laogui was actually very prudent. He must have figured out something. Otherwise, he wouldn't make the bet so confidently. "Hao Shi, you're so stingy. I won't tell you." "Haha. Take your time to guess." Xia Laogui also laughed out loud. He had indeed figured out something, but he refused to tell Hao Shi. Lin Feng was second in the elimination rounds, and was very likely to be first in the upcoming qualifying rounds. If he really obtained first place, the various honors, statuses, and identities he would receive would be unimaginable. They would not even be inferior to divine realm experts. The Lin family was naturally overjoyed. The students of the Myriad Academy were also overjoyed. Chief Commander Long Duo and the other martial artists of Dragonlith City were also very happy. All the martial artists in the South Mountain base also felt incomparably proud. Lin Feng's name was already known throughout the world. Everyone knew that Lin Feng had boundless prospects. Such a young metamorphic realm martial artist, and almost the strongest martial artist in the metamorphic realm at that, had a high chance of reaching the divine realm in the future. He was almost a preliminary divine realm martial artist. Many people were happy for Lin Feng, but there were also some who were in a constant state of anxiety and worry. This was the case for the Zhao family. Be it Zhao Dongsheng or Zhao Ping, they were both in an indescribable panic. Yes, panic. Back when Lin Feng rose to power in Dragonlith City, broke the genetic lock, and became the hero of humanity, the Zhao family had already been very wary of the Lin family. Even the plan they had formulated to join forces and annihilate the Lin Corporation came to nothing. Dealing with an inhuman expert was no easy task. The Zhao family even wanted to take the initiative to make peace with the Lin family, but the Lin family did not want to discuss it at all. What was there to talk about with the Zhao family? The Zhao family should be the one getting anxious. Of course, if Lin Feng had only just broken the genetic lock, even if he obtained the Hero of Humanity medal, what could he do to the Zhao family? The Zhao family had an inhuman expert who had broken the genetic lock, who was always at the front line. His family had to be protected. Although Zhao Ping was not his immediate family, he was still related to Zhao Dongsheng. The Lin family did not have the ability to deal with the Zhao family now. Hence, the Zhao family could only endure it, but they were not too afraid. But things were different now. The Zhao family was really afraid. Lin Feng's rise was too fast. He was now the focus of attention worldwide. If he obtained first place in the global martial arts competition again, he would almost be a preliminary candidate for Divine Realm. How influential was a Divine Realm martial artist? Perhaps Lin Feng would not dare to kill Zhao Ping for no reason, but as long as Lin Feng revealed a little of his thoughts, although Zhao Ping would not die, the Zhao family would be implicated, and the Zhao family's businesses would decline. Without their businesses and massive wealth, what did the Zhao family have? At that time, even if they were still alive, it would be a life worse than death. However, if the Zhao family took the initiative to reconcile with the Lin family now, would the Lin family agree? The Zhao family was in trouble, and Zhao Ping's life was gradually becoming difficult. His father, who was very accommodating in the past, was now beating and scolding him at every turn. He was even grounded and restricted from leaving the Zhao family's villa. His life was very suffocating. Apart from the uneasy and terrified Zhao family, Zhang Zifeng was not in a good mood either. Ever since Lin Feng had offended Zhang Zifeng in Stone City, his dignity received a huge blow. Later on, when the new policy for martial artists appeared, he could not even remain a legate. Now, Zhang Zifeng had already gone to the front line and fought life-or-death battles with some demon generals. This was something he had disdained in the past, but he had no choice. Those demon generals were all very powerful, and not inferior to divine realm martial artists. In fact, in just a few months, Zhang Zifeng had been injured numerous times, and sustained rather serious injuries on one occasion. Zhang Zifeng was a dignified divine realm martial artist. His mentality was like a high and almighty deity. How could he stand such a miserable life? All of this was because of Lin Feng. He hated Lin Feng to death. Unfortunately, he was at the front line. Even divine realm martial artists could not leave easily. Now that the global martial arts competition had begun, Zhang Zifeng had actually discovered Lin Feng. Moreover, Lin Feng was in the limelight in the global martial arts competition. He was ranked second in the elimination rounds, and was very likely to be first in the qualifying rounds. Compared to Lin Feng's boundless glory, how could he, a dignified divine realm martial artist living in such a sorry state, not hate Lin Feng for it? Lin Feng, all of this is because of you. In only 9 months, you've already become a third-level metamorphic realm martial artist. Who would believe that you don't have any secrets? The 5 major factions aren't the only ones who hold the reins in this world. Where light is, there darkness will be also. A trace of coldness appeared in Zhang Zifeng's eyes. Elder Kang's expression suddenly changed slightly, as if he had received some news. Elder Kang, what happened? Sage Yuanyi was on very good terms with Elder Kang. He could tell at a glance that something was up with Elder Kang. Elder Kang's expression gradually darkened. He said coldly, "Some rats have noticed Lin Feng." Sage Yuanyi's expression also darkened. He naturally knew what Elder Kang meant. Although the entire human world was controlled by the 5 major factions and the 9 sages, it was impossible for them to really control human nature. Human nature was the most complex thing of all. Light coexisted with darkness. Not all martial artists, and not all divine realm or metadivine realm experts, were dedicated to all of humanity. They wandered on the edge of darkness and light. They only thought about their own martial path and life transitions. Humanity and justice meant nothing to them. Some people noticed that Lin Feng had broken through to the 3rd level of metamorphic realm in 9 months. This speed had already broken the record set by Dongfang Shang, which was 1 year and 3 months. Some people also noticed how Lin Feng's mental power was incredibly strong. Those martial artists who knew about the void bubble also vaguely coveted Lin Feng, and felt that Lin Feng might be carrying some unknown secrets. Just because the sages did not care did not mean that the other divine realm and metadivine realm martial artists did not as well. There were even people who had paid the same attention to Dongfang Shang before. Back then, Dongfang Shang was extraordinarily talented. He had also encountered a few crises, but resolved all of them eventually. Elder Kang also told this news to the Invincible Fist Sage. The Invincible Fist Sage snorted coldly and said, "Those shady rats, don't let me find out who they are. Otherwise, I'll personally wipe them out." However, even the Invincible Fist Sage could only make a vicious statement. Why? It's because there was no way to find them at all. Those martial artists hiding in the dark might actually be a divine realm martial artist fighting with dire beasts at the front line in their real identity. However, in the dark, they might appear with another identity and face. Where light is, there darkness will be also. Even the 9 sages and the 5 major factions could not possibly eliminate this situation completely. Invincible, get some experts from your academic faction to watch over Lin Feng's family. Nothing must happen to his family. As for Lin Feng, he is in the global martial arts competition. He'll be fine for the time being. The other sages also nodded in agreement. Lin Feng was only a metamorphic realm martial artist. He was already very fortunate to receive the attention of sages. After all, the 9 sages were all guarding the depths of the outland. They would not leave easily unless there was a major upheaval. He has to deal with some hardships himself. With that, Elder Kong closed his eyes again. He knew very well that Lin Feng's future situation would be rather perilous. But wasn't this also a path that a genius martial artist had to experience? Back then, Dongfang Shang and many other geniuses had all grown with such hardships. The sages could give them some help, but they could not help them at all times. The path of martial arts ultimately relied on oneself. Only 10 martial artists were left in the square. The rest had already been eliminated. Out of the tens of thousands of participating martial artists, only these 10 outstanding people were determined in the end. Although some martial artists might feel that they were unlucky, most of them were convinced. All 10 of these martial artists had won 60 or 70 battles consecutively. The strongest of them had even won more than 90 battles consecutively without a single defeat. Although on the surface only Lin Feng and Greiman had won the most consecutive battles, without actually fighting each other, how would anyone think that they were inferior to others? Hence, Fu Lin glared at Lin Feng and Greiman like a tiger eyeing its prey. She was 3rd place, below Lin Feng and Greiman. However, she was prideful. How could she really be convinced? It wasn't just Fu Lin. The other martial artists were the same. The battle intention in their eyes was very strong as they stared at each other. An hour passed quickly. Lin Feng and the others entered the virtual combat system again. The rules of the qualifying rounds are divided into 5 groups based on the rankings of the elimination rounds. The winner will draw lots to determine the final ranking. In fact, this method was not even as fair as the previous elimination method. What if the 2 strongest experts met in advance? Wouldn't someone who was originally able to get 2nd place wind up in the 6th place? However, in reality, the martial artists did not mind. This was because according to the reward rules of the global martial arts competition, only the 1st place could obtain 10,000 merit value. As for the 2nd, 3rd, and up to the 10th place after that, the rewards were exactly the same. What did this mean? This actually meant that the winner would take all. Honor was only granted to the 1st place. If one could not get 1st place, even if they obtained 2nd place, it was actually a failure and meaningless. Hence, although this method of drawing lots seemed unfair, it was actually very fair. This was because if one wanted to obtain 1st place, they had to keep winning. Martial artists matched in qualifying rounds. Greiman versus Wang Yiming. Lin Feng versus Lu Chengfeng. Fu Lin versus Ander. Darden versus Cialis. Lin Su versus Ouyang Jing. Many martial artists in the square fell silent. Countless projection images dimmed slightly, and then 5 scenes appeared. They were scenes of the 5 pairs of martial artists fighting. These 5 battles were held simultaneously, but the one who received the most attention was not Greiman, or even Lin Feng, but the last 3 pairs. After all, in everyone's opinion, Greiman and Lin Feng were stronger than the other 8 by a stretch. Perhaps the other 8 martial artists would not think so, but most people did. There seemed to be no suspense in Greiman and Lin Feng's battles. The remaining 3 pairs of martial artists were similar in strength, so there was more suspense. In the virtual combat system, Greiman and Lin Feng did not pay attention to the other 3 matches. They only had eyes for their opponents. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. At this moment, their surroundings had already turned into an environment of heavy downpour. They were surrounded by ruins that appeared as if they had been abandoned for a long time. It looked like an apocalypse. Lu Chengfeng took a deep breath and suddenly said in a low voice, "Can we expand the battlefield?" "Yes." Unexpectedly, the virtual combat system actually responded. "I'd like to request not setting battlefield barriers. I need an open battlefield." Lu Chengfeng's eyes flickered with excitement. Battlefield barriers cleared. The battlefield is currently open. As soon as the virtual system finished speaking, the surrounding ruins disappeared. There was only the pitter-patter of heavy rain. They were in a huge square that stretched as far as the eye could see. Originally, many people did not pay much attention to Lin Feng's battlefield. Hearing Lu Chengfeng's request, they were also slightly stunned and somewhat confused. What is Lu Chengfeng doing? The battlefield environment seems to have changed. What's the use? Without absolute strength, what's the use of changing battlefield environments? Lu Chengfeng's motive for doing this doesn't seem simple. Could it be, you've thought of it too? It seems like Lu Chengfeng has been studying Lin Feng for a long time. Not bad, this might be the only way. This battle is interesting. There might even be a dramatic turn of events. Many martial artists started discussing spiritedly. Some martial artists seemed to have guessed something and looked unfathomable. Meanwhile, some martial artists did not understand and did not know what Lu Chengfeng meant. Hao Shi's eyes lit up as well. He suddenly said, Lu Chengfeng? He's rather smart. Not bad. He's able to grasp Lin Feng's only weakness. Even Xia Laogui had no choice but to nod and say, that's right. This may be Lin Feng's only weakness. This Lu Chengfeng is quite good and has a quick mind. But were they worried? In truth, Hao Shi and Xia Laogui were not worried at all. They knew Lin Feng's strength very well, especially Hao Shi, who knew how formidable Lin Feng's innate talents were. From the beginning to end, Lin Feng did not seem to have used any other methods yet. Even the sages nodded slightly, feeling that Lu Chengfeng was indeed quite good to be able to come up with such a method. Hence, the sages' gazes were all focused on Lin Feng's battle. They also wanted to see how Lin Feng would counter it. Interesting. How did you think of this method? Lin Feng looked at Lu Chengfeng opposite him and immediately understood his goal. Lu Chengfeng smiled and said, actually, I've noticed you for a long time. I've practiced this astral martial art called the Void Bubble before, but it was too difficult. In the end, I gave up. Although I didn't succeed in mastering it, I have some understanding of the Void Bubble. The Void Bubble can't be infinitely large. Moreover, if you condense the Void Bubble at an especially large size, its power would decrease drastically. The 9,999 strands of astral power in my body will definitely be able to withstand it. If you control the size of the astral bubble, and I'm a martial artist known for my speed, you won't have a chance to use the Void Bubble on me at all. When the time comes, it'll be a battle of attrition. The final victor isn't certain. Lu Chengfeng's words enlightened those martial artists who did not understand. Why hadn't they thought of this before? Previously, the battlefield environment in the virtual combat system seemed to be ever-changing, but in reality, it was set up in the standard of an arena. Combatants could move around however they wanted. Hence, Lin Feng's Void Bubble was very advantageous. All his opponents had no choice but to resist it head-on. However, if they resisted it head-on, Lin Feng's Void Bubble had a small diameter. How terrifying was its power! Even third-level metamorphic realm experts with 9,999 strands of astral power in their bodies could not resist the collapsing force of Lin Feng's astral bubble. So they were defeated one after another. But what if it was an open battlefield environment? If he used the infinite space to avoid Lin Feng's Void Bubble and not allow Lin Feng's Void Bubble to trap him, no matter how powerful Lin Feng's Void Bubble was, it would be useless. For a moment, those martial artists who had fought with Lin Feng all shook their heads, looking vexed. Lin Feng had such an obvious fatal weakness. How could they not have discovered it? If they had thought of it earlier, they might have been able to defeat Lin Feng. They might be the ones in the top 10, unlike now, when Lu Chengfeng was the one taking advantage. Not bad. Your observation skills are very good. Even I forgot that the Void Bubble has such a weakness. In the virtual combat system, Lin Feng nodded as well, agreeing with Lu Chengfeng's analysis. Lu Chengfeng frowned and said, I've figured out your fatal weakness, but you're not worried at all. Are you pretending to be calm? Or are you confident about your ability? There's no point in talking. Let's fight. Lin Feng shook his head. The void bubble did have flaws. After all, no martial art was completely perfect. If it was really a perfect martial art, there wouldn't be so few people practicing the void bubble. No matter how difficult it was, there would be martial artists who would give their all to study it. The void bubble was imperfect, and there had never been a perfect martial art in the world. Lin Feng knew the flaw of the void bubble very well. The void bubble could only work if it collided with his opponent. If it did not collide with his opponent, what could the void bubble do no matter how strong it was? Actually, this flaw would not affect Lin Feng much in reality. This was because he had more than 80,000 strands of astral power. It would not be a problem for him to sustain the void bubble for more than 100 meters. How massive was an astral bubble over 100 meters in diameter? Moreover, with more than 80,000 astral power condensed, even a 100-meter astral bubble would still be terrifyingly powerful. At the very least, a third-level metamorphic realm martial artist would definitely not be able to withstand it. Unfortunately, this was not reality. For the sake of concealment, Lin Feng had Longbetham maintain his astral power at 9,999 strands. It was impossible for him to condense a 100-meter-long astral bubble. Even if he did, it would have no ability to harm Lu Chengfeng. However, did Lin Feng not have any other methods apart from the void bubble? Swoosh! Lu Chengfeng moved. His name meant, ride the wind. In reality, he had also awakened a wind-type innate ability. In addition, he cultivated speed-type astral martial arts. Hence, his entire figure was light and drifting. His movements were erratic and he was extremely fast. Lin Feng could not even lock onto him with his mental power, let alone deploy the void bubble. Lu Chengfeng was indeed extremely careful. He would not give Lin Feng the chance to deploy the void bubble. In that case, Lin Feng might as well have a good fight with Lu Chengfeng. Armor! Lin Feng growled. Immediately, a layer of armor as black as ink quickly covered his body. This layer of armor almost covered Lin Feng's entire body, revealing only his eyes. A few sharp spikes protruded from his shoulder, and there were a few hideous and terrifying tumors on his back. Lin Feng's entire aura changed. He was like the most terrifying dire beast, emitting a monstrous murderous aura. Innate ability? Lu Chengfeng found it very strange. Lin Feng's innate ability was obviously defensive, but he was a third-level metamorphic realm martial artist. What could a mere defensive innate ability do? Once his astral power erupted, the power would be unimaginable. However, Lin Feng was not done. Of course he knew how terrifying the eruption of astral power of metamorphic realm martial artists was. With a thought, he said in a low voice, "Petrification technique." Buzz. A ripple-like light flashed across the surface of Lin Feng's armor. Then, his armor became even harder, and his defense increased by at least 2 or 3 times. This was the innate ability Lin Feng had obtained from fusing the pangolin beast genes not long ago, the petrification technique. Its defense was even above Lin Feng's armor, but it looked very inconspicuous. Almost no one knew how formidable this faint layer of light was. Even a sage would probably think that it was the light of Lin Feng's armor. However, this also happened to conceal the innate ability of Lin Feng's petrification technique, and could also cause his opponents to underestimate him. Lin Feng naturally would not take the initiative to expose an innate ability like the petrification technique. Moreover, Lin Feng had the undying characteristic. He was not afraid of any metamorphic realm martial artist. Cut! Suddenly, Lin Feng felt an invisible force cutting into his body. However, the petrification technique on his body merely rippled. Nothing took effect at all. This was only a probing attack from Lu Chengfeng. Is his defense that strong? Looks like ordinary attacks are useless. I can only unleash astral power. Lu Chengfeng's style was cautious. Without full confidence, he would not usually take the initiative to attack. But now, he had no choice but to take the initiative to attack. He had already created such good conditions and understood the fatal flaw of Lin Feng's void bubble. They were both at the third level of metamorphic realm. What was there to be afraid of? Hence, Lu Chengfeng sped up again. Some afterimages even appeared as he rapidly approached Lin Feng. Good. Lin Feng laughed out loud. He had always used the void bubble, coupled with his lean body. Many people did not know that what he advocated deep down was fists. Whirlwind explosion, Lu Chengfeng shouted. He was also a decisive person. He mobilized over 9,000 strands of astral power in his body almost entirely, and they surged into his arm in a frenzy. Lu Chengfeng seemed to have transformed into a terrifying whirlwind that swept towards Lin Feng. It was too late for Lin Feng to use the void bubble now. Ha! Come on, let's decide the winner with a punch. Lin Feng was wearing armor, and his appearance was extremely feral. His body even emitted a fiendish aura. He was like a completely different person from before, stunning all the martial artists. However, at this moment, the 9,999 strands of astral power in Lin Feng's body exploded in an instant. Astral power erupted. 6 spiral forces erupted. Sharp horn erupted. Perhaps no one could describe how strong Lin Feng was at this moment. 100 strands of astral power could unleash about 400 tons of strength. Then, once 9,999 strands of astral power erupted, it could unleash at least 40,000 tons of strength. There were also 6 spiral forces. Coupled with the strength of his physical body, there were at least over 4,000 tons of strength. There was also the sharp horn. It was indestructible and not convertible to strength. If it was really converted into strength, it would not be inferior to 4,000 tons of strength or even stronger. How could any metamorphic realm martial artist rival such a terrifying power? Boom! The two collided fiercely. This was a collision of pure strength. The entire battle scene seemed to be shaking all of a sudden. A terrifying impact quickly spread in all directions. It swept in all directions mightily. At this moment, even a first-level metamorphic realm martial artist would probably be shattered by the aftershock. The originally flat ground exploded all of a sudden, and cracked rapidly like an earthquake. This was a true cataclysm. Although it was simulated by the virtual combat system, this simulation was completely realistic. If Lin Feng and Lu Chengfeng were really fighting in the ruins at this moment, the ruins would probably have been razed to the ground long ago. This was a real battle. There were no unnecessary fancy moves or techniques. It was just a head-on clash. The destructive power that was far more devastating than the most horrific bomb was directly presented to everyone in the world. The shock in their hearts made many people stare at the television screen in shock. This was the true strength of martial artists. The destructive power at that level was far more shocking than some data or adjectives used by experts. The screen became very quiet. Who was the winner of this shocking head-on clash? On the screen, an area with a radius of hundreds of meters was almost in ruins. A huge pit appeared in the ground, as if the ground had collapsed from an earthquake. However, everyone knew that the damage was caused by the aftershock when Lin Feng and Lu Chengfeng attacked with all their might. The ground had collapsed so deeply from the explosion in an instant, and with a range of hundreds of meters. How terrifying was that power? As the dust settled, a figure gradually appeared on the screen. It was still that somewhat hideous armor. Even the armor was completely undamaged. Lin Feng's gaze was calm. He looked at the huge pit below. There was nothing left in the pit. Actually, I still prefer fists. Lin Feng looked at the sky and said faintly, swoosh. Lu Chengfeng woke up, but his forehead and back were covered in cold sweat. He had lost. He had lost terribly. Originally, he thought that victory was within his grasp now that he understood the fatal weakness of Lin Feng's void bubble. But in reality, just now, that terrifying punch and unparalleled power had induced a deep sense of despair in him. Was that kind of power even something a metamorphic realm martial artist could possess? It was that punch that had practically shattered his pride and his plan. It had made him understand what it meant to break all methods with brute force. All schemes, plans, and weaknesses were useless. The void bubble might be very strong, but that was only one of Lin Feng's many methods. What's terrifying was not the void bubble, but Lin Feng. I accept my defeat. Lu Chengfeng's expression was gloomy as he smiled wanly. He had lost. In fact, his soul had suffered a huge shock. Even if he could still fight for the 6th to 10th place next, he had lost all interest. So what if he was 6th? So what if he was 10th? It was all the same. He no longer had the drive from before. Lin Feng is the victor. On the screen, Lin Feng's name was the first to stand out. Among the 5 groups of martial artists, Lin Feng took the shortest time to defeat his opponent. The actual battle lasted less than 10 seconds. Many people were dumbfounded. They were shocked and even felt a little at a loss. Hadn't Lu Chengfeng figured out Lin Feng's fatal weakness? In the end, Lin Feng did not even use the void bubble. Why was Lu Chengfeng still defeated? The virtual combat system allowed replays, so there were replays on many televisions in the broadcast. Through the replays, they could clearly see how devastating the power contained in Lin Feng's punch was. They witnessed that devastating power as well. Lu Chengfeng was shattered directly, unable to put up any resistance. This was complete suppression. If this were in reality, Lu Chengfeng might have been blasted into a bloody mist by that punch just now. At this moment, the dark horse was no longer the dark horse, but a genuine top-notch martial artist. Lin Feng had come all this way not by relying on the void bubble, but through genuine strength. Those martial artists who were originally very envious of Lu Chengfeng and somewhat regretful that they had not discovered Lin Feng's fatal weakness were also dumbfounded at this moment. Their faces were filled with shame. Did Lin Feng have a fatal weakness? Previously, they had thought that Lin Feng had a fatal weakness, and had even confidently believed that Lu Chengfeng had already found Lin Feng's fatal weakness. But now, they suddenly realized that what Lu Chengfeng had found was not Lin Feng's fatal weakness, but the fatal weakness of the void bubble. Without the void bubble, Lin Feng was still one of the most terrifying metamorphic realm martial artists. Impressive, really impressive. Lin Feng is so powerful. Lu Chengfeng also has 9,999 strands of astral power. Why is the difference so huge? He was blasted apart in one go. It's unbelievable. Of course, it's an innate ability. Look at the armor on Lin Feng. The aftershock struck his body without any effect. The innate ability Lin Feng awakened is very strong. I checked the video of Lin Feng's battle in Dragonlith City on the internet. He trains the strength of his physical body. I heard that he has also cultivated the invincible Fist Sage's non-opal body tempering. If I'm not wrong, he must still be cultivating non-opal body tempering. Apart from the eruption of astral power, there's also the strength of his physical body. As expected of a dark horse. Looks like only Lin Feng can challenge Greiman's position. Lu Chengfeng had lost, and Lin Feng had won. Moreover, Lin Feng had crushed Lu Chengfeng with absolute strength. He had defeated Lu Chengfeng head-on, and convinced everyone. As for Lin Feng's fatal weakness, that was even more of a joke. No one would care about Lin Feng's so-called fatal weakness. Even without the void bubble, Lin Feng was still not someone ordinary metamorphic realm martial artists could compare to. Lin Feng was the first to defeat his opponent, and the results of the other 4 groups soon came out. Greiman, Fu Lin, and Darden all defeated their opponents one after another. Only the battle between Lin Su and Ouyang Jing ended with Ouyang Jing's narrow victory. This basically reflected the rankings of the elimination rounds. They were actually quite reliable. Basically, the high-ranking martial artists won. Even if Ouyang Jing was ranked lower than Lin Su and defeated her opponent, their rankings were very close to each other to begin with. One was the 5th and the other was the 6th. There was not much of a difference in strength. However, Ouyang Jing was more composed than Lin Su, so Ouyang Jing won in the end. Lin Feng, Greiman, Fu Lin, Darden, and Ouyang Jing won. They would draw lots next. The 5 of them entered the virtual combat system, and Lin Feng was the first to draw lots. Number 2. There were only 5 numbers in total, 2 number 1s and 2 number 2s. The remaining number 0 meant an empty round. Lin Feng drew number 2, and Greiman drew number 1. The 2 of them did not fight this time. In the end, Fu Lin was luckier and drew number 0 for an empty round. Lin Feng would fight Darden, and Greiman would fight Ouyang Jing. Darden was Lin Feng's opponent. Ranked 4th in the elimination rounds, his strength was evident. In the battle scene, Lin Feng asked curiously, "You're not applying for an open battle scene?" Indeed, even though Lin Feng had defeated Lu Chengfeng with a single punch and appeared very violent, if one weighed the pros and cons, he would definitely still be willing to deal with Lin Feng instead of facing the void bubble. Only by choosing an open combat environment could he avoid Lin Feng's void bubble. Darden shook his head. "Actually, I know I'm no match for you. Whether it's an open combat environment or a situation like this, I have no chance of winning." Many people were surprised. Was Darden going to admit defeat? But from the looks of it, he wasn't about to admit defeat. "I cultivate defensive astral martial arts and the awakened defensive innate ability. My defense is what I'm most proud of. In addition to the astral power in my body, I'm confident about facing any attack. But after I saw your void bubble, I no longer believe so. Hence, even though I'm not your match, I still want to experience how strong the void bubble is. I want to know the difference between us." So Darden wanted to test the power of the void bubble. "As you wish. I will deploy the void bubble to the best of my ability." Lin Feng looked deeply at Darden. This was a true martial artist. Hence, he decided not to disappoint Darden. Doing his best was a sign of respect for Darden. Darden's expression was solemn. The astral power in his body began to erupt, vaguely forming a golden protective layer. In reality, there were all kinds of astral martial arts, and they focused on different things. However, no matter how the astral martial arts changed, they could not change the fact that astral power was actually a kind of all-purpose energy. It was precisely because astral power was only a type of energy that, be it defensive martial arts, offensive martial arts, or speed-type martial arts, they only differed in aspects of focus and power, rather than differing in astral power. The combat body that Lin Feng cultivated was actually the same. They all treated astral power as a form of energy. Darden clearly cultivated defensive astral martial arts. Moreover, he had an innate ability. His entire body was covered in green scales, making him look like a crocodile. This was also Darden's innate ability. Lin Feng's armor was not the only strange one. In reality, many martial artists had awakened some strange talents. "Come on. Let me feel your void bubble." A trace of insanity appeared on Darden's face. Void bubble. Lin Feng's gaze was calm. In front of him, a magnificent astral bubble appeared. This time, Lin Feng fulfilled Darden's wish. He infused almost all 9,999 strands of astral power in his body into the astral bubble. With Lin Feng's current mental power, it was naturally a piece of cake for him to control the astral bubble infused with only over 9,000 strands of astral power. The void bubble easily enveloped Darden. Moreover, Darden did not resist violently. Originally, the void bubble was beautiful and had a lethal psychedelic effect. But Darden's will was indeed strong. He was unmoved. Since that was the case, Lin Feng did not hesitate anymore. "Collapse!" As Lin Feng growled, the astral bubble began to collapse rapidly. In an instant, Darden's astral martial art was instantly broken. Even 9,999 strands of astral power were useless. In 2 moments, Darden's defensive innate ability was also crushed. In 3 moments, Darden had completely disappeared as the astral bubble collapsed. Swoosh! Darden opened his eyes in the square. He had experienced it, and he had felt it, the majestic force when the void bubble collapsed, as if nothing could withstand the power of the collapse. Even at the moment of collapse, the pain he felt was very clear. It was a helpless feeling of being unable to do anything despite knowing that death was imminent. "I've seen it for myself. The void bubble is amazing." Darden knew the power of the void bubble very well, but he also knew that Lin Feng was actually more powerful. Not only had he mastered the void bubble, he also seemed to have unleashed the power of the void bubble to its fullest extent. At least in the past, there had definitely been no metamorphic realm martial artist who could unleash the power of the void bubble to such a terrifying extent. He fully accepted his defeat. Lin Feng was still the first to win, followed by Greiman and Ouyang Jing. There was no suspense. Greiman still won, and with Fu Lin's empty round, the top 3 of the global martial arts competition had emerged. Fu Lin's luck was relatively good, but no one doubted her strength. After all, she was ranked third in the elimination rounds. The real focus was Lin Feng and Greiman. They wondered how lucky the three of them would be in this draw. The draw soon began. Lin Feng drew first as usual. He drew 1. He wasn't very lucky and wouldn't get an empty round. If Fu Lin was extremely lucky, she might even have a chance to get an empty round again. Unfortunately, the one who drew 0 this time was Greiman. Fu Lin was not so lucky anymore. She was going to fight Lin Feng this time. In reality, perhaps no one had paid much attention to Fu Lin. It was only when she drew the lot to fight with Lin Feng that she received attention. The limelight of the global martial arts tournament this time was all snatched away by Lin Feng and Greiman. Perhaps in the second global martial arts competition 10 years later, no one would remember who was third. They would only remember the fierce battle between Lin Feng and Greiman, the geniuses of 2 generations. To Lin Feng and Greiman it was a good legend, but to the other participating martial artists it was not such good news. They had all become a backdrop for Lin Feng and Greiman. Fu Lin stood opposite Lin Feng. She was a beautiful woman, and she was filled with a mature charm. Her long hair was tied back, and there was a heroic air to her. However, she sighed and shook her head. Look outside. How many people are still paying attention to the battle between you and me? They're all looking forward to the battle between you and Greiman. I've become the backdrop. Lin Feng smiled and said, "You can defeat me and fight with Greiman for the first place. If I could defeat you, I wouldn't be talking so much with you. I'm already satisfied that I can get third place. Moreover, this martial arts competition is a martial arts competition between you and Greiman. Since I'm destined to be the backdrop, I have no intention to lose face here. I admit defeat. However, I hope that I lose to a true genius who can amaze the world with a single feat, and who deserves to be first in the global martial arts competition. So, do not disappoint me." With that, Fu Lin's figure disappeared. She admitted defeat decisively. Admit defeat? Interesting. I believe I won't disappoint you. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Of course he understood what Fu Lin meant. If he obtained the first place, even if Fu Lin admitted defeat, she would only have admitted defeat to the first place in the global martial arts competition. This could be considered a minor comfort to her. No one looked down on Fu Lin taking the initiative to admit defeat. In reality, when facing Lin Feng, apart from Greiman, no one else was Lin Feng's match. Lin Feng had already proven with his strength that he was very likely to be a dark horse until the end. There was no fluke. He had come this far entirely by relying on his powerful strength. Fu Lin could not deal with either Lin Feng or Greiman. She might as well take the initiative to admit defeat. Everyone was looking forward to the violent collision between the geniuses of 2 generations, Lin Feng and Greiman. But Lin Feng felt the surroundings change rapidly, and finally, he appeared in a boundless field. Around him were also fiery red maple trees. The falling maple leaves gave off a melancholic atmosphere. Standing opposite Lin Feng was Greiman. He was not tall and well-built, had fair skin and a sharp gaze. He exuded an awe-inspiring aura, and filled with battle intent. This was a proud, domineering, and fierce martial artist. This was also a fierce battle between titans. It was the climax of the global martial arts competition. Between Lin Feng and Greiman, geniuses of 2 generations, who would be the true number 1 genius in the end? Would Lin Feng be the dark horse until the end? Or would Greiman defend the dignity of the geniuses of the older generation? At this moment, everyone's discussion gradually died down. They were all focused on the screen, where Lin Feng and Greiman were about to have a peak showdown. A battle was imminent.